Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be talking today about a really old craft called quilling, which is a paper rolling craft. I think I kind of touched on it a little about a year ago when I was making Christmas ornaments by rolling the paper beads. And I kind of talked a little bit about quilling, and that would be a future video. This is another paper craft that my mom taught me when I was very small, and my cousins. We can all do it, but it's done with. When we were little, we used toothpicks often. If there were several of us doing it, just because we didn't have enough tools, so for all of us to be able to do it, we would use a toothpick. But this is what an actual tool looks like. Not sure if it's going to pick it up on the camera, but that tiny little top has a slit in it that the paper will slide down into. And the paper, if you buy it, you can get it at places like Hobby Lobby, or anywhere online, I'm sure. It comes in these packets, it just says quilling paper, and they're very long strips. They're going to be in different widths. And you can buy like Christmas packets or solid packets. You can find just about anything. And with quilling, you can be very creative, or you can order patterns to go by to create anything from a card to a wall hanging to whatever you want to embellish with them. I had gotten all of my mom's stuff after she passed away. I had a whole box full of quilling supplies, and they had just been put away, and I'd actually kind of forgotten about it. And I bought a Christmas card this year that actually has quilling on the card. So that reminded me of it, and I wanted you to be able to see an example of what you can do. So they have these little pre-stamped penguins on here, and they have used the quilling technique to make their little feet, to outline their body, and put a little scarf and hat on them. That is actually quilling. So is the tree above, where they have made the shape of a tree out of a single piece of the paper. Then they've rolled the paper loosely and pinched it in and filled in the tree. Then they've used a tight roll and made the little ornaments for the tree. So I thought that was really cute on how they took a card that had pre-stamped things on it and embellish those. So you don't have to be creative and have to be able to draw a penguin to be able to make that cute little guy. You can take a card you already have, maybe it's a card with a Christmas tree on it, and you can do something similar to this just to give it a 3D look instead of just a flat card. Okay, so I did want you to see that. And we're going to talk about some basic rolls. I found in my mom's stuff, she had this really old Tupperware container that she had already cut up some of the little strips, and she had done lots of different rolls in here. So I pulled out a few of them to show you some really basic rolls. So right here, this is starting out as a circle, a loosely rolled circle that she has enclosed with just a little bit of glue, and then she's pinched both ends. Now this could be used as a leaf, or it could also be used as just a filler or a flower that would have the pointed tips on the petals. This is called a tight roll. That is just a long strip, depending on how long, Here's another tight roll. Let's put them together. Okay, a shorter piece of paper gives you a small tight roll, maybe the center of a small flower. Or you could still use a larger one for that as well. or again, they could be just used as fillers depending on what your project happens to be. This is called a loose roll, but open. So you can see she didn't have that end glued. This is a loose roll where she did enclose it and glue the end down. This is also a loose roll with one end pinched into a teardrop, which can also be a flower petal. And then of course you have this, just a decorative scroll. Now the neat thing about the scroll is you've gone about midway to the left, midway at the other end to the right, and it makes a pretty little decorative scroll. If you roll both of them the same direction and then pinch an end, you get a little decorative heart. This was one that it's gotten all messed up in storage, but you get the idea. Instead of being rolled in the opposite direction, they were rolled in the same direction, and then the midway point pinched. And then if you wanted to pinch it the opposite way, you get another little decorative item. Okay, so just depending on the pinching that you do. And then here is a flower that was made that is even, the petals are even more different. Let me lay it down here because it's red. But you can see she didn't have the rounded petal or the pointed petal. They're a little bit squared off, but they're just still cute. And then what you would do with the flower after it was put together like that is you might take a green strip and you would just put a little bit of glue on there and slide it up between the petal. And then you could bring in the leaves. But depending on your project, you know, what you wanted to do there, but how you wanted to place them. You could have a whole vine of those, you know, going up the side of a card. Or again, you could take some cardstock in 4x6 and make a little bouquet of flowers, frame it, and hang it just like a wall hanging, you know. Or you can make it as big as you want. This size flower, I just think 4x6 would be cute. Okay, so, oh, here's some more petals she had done. They're really loose, as you can see, and she made them kind of oval. They're still kind of rounded at the top, not pinched tight, but you could start putting those together. You could either, as you see with this one, the little center is sitting on top, but you could also have this flush so that they're all made with the same size paper, and instead of the center being on top after the flower was put together, you're just going to kind of go around it instead. So you get the idea of how you can put things together. Now on the card, as you can see, when you're looking at the tree, they've really mashed them in pretty tight. They're really just going with the shape of the tree. So depending on what you're doing, you know, you may not have to worry about the shape itself so much as just getting the paper rolled to make your fillers. So, let's roll a few papers. If you wear reading glasses, you're probably going to want to put those on because the little slit is very small, and so is the paper. So what you want to do is just slide it in. Now I have better luck if I start down on the paper getting it in there. and then pull. Once you're at the end, get pretty close. You just start rolling. And you can be creative, freelance, you know, just do something very organic like I just put together there. Or you can sketch something out, like draw a flower. You can use that to measure your petals, to measure these petals and things that you're making for it. Or you can order patterns, print patterns online. There's a lot of different ways. You could even use a coloring book. You know, if there was something cute in a coloring book, you could trace that onto a paper. Now, if you want that loose, you go ahead and let it loose after you roll it, and then pinch it and pull it off. Once it's off, loosen it as much as you want. Now I'm going to enclose this one. So I have some tacky glue over here, but Elmer's, anything will work. And just put a tiny, tiny bit on the end of the paper and then lay it down. And I like to pinch wherever we'll do another one. I like to pinch wherever the glue is at, to kind of hide the seam. And I'll just hold it for a second. Now this is so tiny, these thin strips are so small that hot glue is not something you will want to work with. The Aleene's tacky glue is wonderful because it is so tacky that it's going to grab hold quicker than a looser glue like Elmer's, but by all means you can definitely use Elmer's. A glue stick would probably also work. Now I'm going to grab a piece of paper that is a little bigger. So you can see this one's considerably wider. We're going to roll it. And again, I like to go in where it's a little bit stiffer down here, and then slide up to the end. And just start rolling. I'm not going to make you watch me roll the whole thing. So once you're at the end, if you want a tight roll, you don't want to let that go. You want to pinch it and pull that off and get the glue on there right now while it's nice and tight. Rarely did I ever do a craft that I needed a lot of tight rolls, unless it was the center of a flower. You know, I really didn't use a whole lot of those, so I like to let mine go. And then just grab the glue. Put just a hint. It's not going to take much. Pull it down. If you're doing flower work, this is probably going to be the most popular one you would do. You know, with the big petals. Okay, so we'll lay that aside and let it dry. Now, this one, or even this one, really, if it was in the deep red like this, you could easily make poinsettias. So just think of your flowers, the ones that you like, and and kind of imagine the shape of their petals, and then that's how you would pinch or work your paper. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to give you the basics of quilling. This little tool does not cost much at all. If you wanted to try quilling, I would either look for a kit that's going to give you a tool, some papers. It's probably going to give you like primary colors, unless you bought a kit for Christmas or something like that. But it is a cute little craft. Like I said, even if all you're doing is embellishing a card with something like this, or if you are going to be creative, you know, make your own wall hanging or your own cards. If you're a stamper, you might stamp an image and then create the images using your paper to go on top of that to give it a raised effect. You can take it further. If you have little gemstones, you know, the flat back gemstones, if you had a little blue one, you might want to stack it on top of that. You know, things like that. Or put a tiny little spot of glue, sprinkle a little iridescent glitter on it. It's really limitless, like with most crafts, you know. This is a good craft for kids. I know sometimes we think that kids can't do certain things, but I'm telling you, I learned this as a small child. And sure, I wasn't getting as in-depth as my mom. We were doing a lot of basic things, but we could do the flowers. We could do these cute little scrolls, you know, and we had a ball with it. So it's not just an adult craft. This is something that you could teach your kids if you wanted, you know, a Sunday afternoon project to do with them, or a weekend project this winter. You know, I would highly recommend something like this. It does bring out your creative side. But if you don't feel you have that creative side, then by all means jump online and print a pattern and then just sit down and play with it. It's not an expensive craft. You can get as elaborate as you want with it, and it is kind of fun. So anyway, I hope this sparked you guys to try something new, and I'll see you in next week's video.